It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10. Our top story. Failed by the state, the victims of the Southport and Nottingham attacks and the killers who should have been stopped. Valdo Calacane, who took 3 lives in Nottingham, should face a retrial, say their families, as an independent report finds multiple failings in his psychiatric care. And Axel Rudakabana, who killed 3 young girls in Southport, should have had his anti-terror case kept open, says a review. Also tonight. The defiant message from Palestinians in Gaza as the White House appears to backtrack on Donald Trump's plan that would see them permanently relocated. The president tonight taking aim at another target, trans women in sport, as he signs an executive order that would bar them from female competition. The gunman who killed 10 people at an adult education centre in Sweden is identified. The fundraising final gig for one of British music's most rebellious and recognisable faces, Ozzy Osbourne. And we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages in our press preview from 10:30 right through to midnight. Good evening. 2 reports released today couldn't have been clearer about the missed opportunities to stop 2 killers who carried out crimes which shocked the country. The families of the 3 victims of the Nottingham knife attacks in 2023 told Sky News there should be a retrial of Valdo Calacane after an independent investigation revealed multiple failings in his psychiatric care. And a rapid review of the Home Office's Prevent programme and the Southport killer, Axel Rudakabana, concluded that the counter-terror case against him should never have been closed. We'll have more on that in a moment. But first, our social affairs correspondent, Becky Johnson, has this report.
As details of the catastrophic failures to prevent the Nottingham attacks were revealed, the victims' families shared their anger.
He got away with murder, didn't he? This has to be addressed. So enough is enough. It's shameful we've had to fight so hard against the public agencies and institutions that should be there to protect us.
Caretaker Ian Coates and students Barnaby Webber and Grace O'Malley Kumar were stabbed to death when Valdo Calacane went onto the streets of Nottingham armed with a knife to kill at random. In the years before, he'd carried out a series of violent attacks and had been sectioned 4 times. Yet on each occasion, he was allowed back into the community where he stopped taking antipsychotic medication.
The police, they failed us. The NHS, they failed us. The mental health of Nottinghamshire have failed us. Like, who do we turn to?
The report reveals that as an inpatient, Calacane was allowed to avoid a form of long-lasting medication due to not liking needles. He was let out of hospital even though his history of violence and aggression meant health workers were advised there should be no lone working, with joint visits recommended. 9 months before the fatal stabbings, he was simply discharged from community mental health because he'd stopped engaging. There was no contact between Calacane and mental health services or his GP between this date and the attacks in June 2023.
We delivered our beautiful child, aged 18 years old, to Nottingham to start the next part of his life. Little did we know what an unsafe city he was being left in and what evil awaited in the shadows.
Barnaby and Grace were simply walking home from a night out as Calacane waited to attack them. Now we know their deaths could have been prevented. Their families want people who failed to be named and held accountable.
How much of the blame do you think lies with individuals, and how much of the blame do you think is more organisational?
If any of those individuals thought that Valdo Calacane was going to go out and share student accommodation with their child, I suspect their choices may have been changed. I think there was laziness, and I think all of this contributes to the fact that accountability on an individual level is essential.
It's also emerged that over 4 years, current or former patients from the same Nottinghamshire trust carried out 15 other serious violent attacks. The chief executive said, "We apologise unreservedly for the opportunities we missed in the care of Valdo Calacane. We will do everything possible to prevent similar incidents happening again." NHS England's mental health director said, "Nationally, we have asked every mental health trust to review these findings, and we've instructed trusts not to discharge people if they do not attend appointments." Speaking to the UK Tonight, the families are now calling for a retrial. They don't believe Calacane's schizophrenia was treatment resistant, a finding that allowed his plea of manslaughter and a hospital order instead of a prison sentence.
As families, we can't understand why that basis wouldn't be challenged, because that sentence to us is not right.
They say they won't stop until they get justice for Ian, Barnaby and Grace, and want this to be a watershed moment for mental health services across the country. Becky Johnson, Sky News.
The murders in Southport were more recent than the Nottingham killings, and Axel Rudakabana was only found guilty last month. The Security Minister told MPs today a rapid review of his treatment by the government's anti-radicalisation programme Prevent had found that it had focused too much on the absence of a distinct ideology when looking at his behaviour. Our chief North of England correspondent, Greg Milam, reports.
Axel Rudakabana's obsession with violence, war and terrorism was alarming enough for his schools to report him to the government's counter-terrorism programme. But 3 times they assessed him. 3 times they took no action. 3 years after that final assessment, he walked into a dance event in Southport and killed 3 young girls. The murders of B.B. King, Elsie Stancombe and Alice Aguiar led to an urgent review into the handling of Rudakabana by the Prevent programme. Its conclusion that he posed significant risk, certainly enough to keep those cases open.
The review concluded that too much focus was placed on the absence of a distinct ideology, to the detriment of considering the perpetrator's susceptibility, grievances and complex needs. There was an under-exploration of the significance of his repeat referrals and the cumulative risk, including his history of violence.
The opposition drew parallels between the perpetrators in Southport and in Nottingham.
Both Rudakabana and Calacane could potentially have been sectioned and detained. And if that, under the Mental Health Act, and if that had happened, perhaps these murders could have been avoided.
The government's accepted all of the review's recommendations. The thresholds for action by Prevent are being looked at.
The important thing is that this is used, to actually look at the future and also just to be realistic that we're facing, a very chaotic landscape of different violent people carrying out horrific attacks for different reasons.
It is unusual for the findings of reviews like this to be made public. The fact they have been is a recognition of those serious questions about how someone who was known to the authorities could have been able to carry out such an atrocity here, and how the families of those who died and those who were injured deserve answers. For so many, the cost of those failings will be with them forever. Greg Milam, Sky News, Southport.
This time last night, President Trump was telling the world that he wanted to permanently resettle Palestinians from Gaza and that the United States should take over the territory. Tonight, the White House appeared to be stepping back from those comments, saying any resettlement would only be temporary. In Gaza and much of the Middle East and beyond, the president's proposal was roundly rejected, as our Middle East correspondent Alistair Bunkle reports.
Donald Trump described Gaza as a demolition site, as hell. Well, this is what it looks like today, after 15 and a half months of war. But for Gazans, it is home, however hellish, and they want to rebuild here, not be forced to move elsewhere.
This is our country. If they want 2 states, fine. If not, we remain here. Where else would we go? We won't go anywhere. This is our land, the land of our ancestors. They are the ones who came from the other side of the world, bringing killing, destruction and displacement.
We reject Trump's decisions and those of his aides and supporters who push for displacement. Why should we be forced into displacement? We remain here, even if it means living on the rubble of our homes. Better that than living in humiliation elsewhere.
Benjamin Netanyahu sat by Donald Trump last night, barely able to contain his own surprise, and with a hint of a smile.
Gaza is not a place for people to be living. And the only reason they want to go back, and I believe this strongly, is because they have no alternative. What's the alternative? Go where? There's no other alternative. If they had an alternative, they'd much rather not go back to Gaza and live in a beautiful alternative that's safe.
Trump's proposal has stunned the Middle East, and the Palestinian representative to the UK was defiant.
It took Israel that ethnic cleansing in 1948, the military occupation of 1967, the colonization and the theft of land, and the system of oppression and apartheid, and all the way to the genocide in Gaza, yet the people of Gaza and the people of Palestine, our people, did not leave their homes.
Netanyahu is still in Washington for a few more days. Back home, he has been under pressure from the extreme right to resume the war in Gaza. The US president's proposal has come at a perfect moment for him. It is a political lifeline for the Israeli Prime Minister.
I think that it is crucial today to consider and examine ideas that are out of the box. After all, Gaza is a failed experiment. It certainly failed under Hamas rule. Anyone with their eyes open understands that Gaza in its current state has no future.
The forced removal of Palestinians from Gaza would be ethnic cleansing. Trump has given no detail how it would work, and it has no backing from Western allies. And with negotiations just starting to extend the Gaza ceasefire, it is a very risky and possibly dangerous move. Alistair Bunkle, Sky News, in Jerusalem.
Millions of Palestinians already live outside of Gaza and the West Bank, and hundreds of thousands more have been forced from their homes inside Gaza by the war there. As our international affairs editor Dominic Waghorn explains, that is partly why Donald Trump's message has gone down so badly in the Middle East.
Palestinians have been moved and moved again in the hundreds of thousands since the creation of the State of Israel. In the War of Israeli Independence in 1948, fought over what had been mandatory Palestine, 750,000 Palestinians fled or were expelled from their homes and villages on land that is now part of the State of Israel. And in turn, hundreds of thousands of Jews were expelled from Arab countries across the region. Palestinians call it the Nakba, or catastrophe. Between half and three-quarters of them are thought to have been displaced. Some were chased out by Zionist militias, some were massacred, hundreds of villages were destroyed. In a huge exodus, they fled and were scattered across the Middle East. Today, there are more than 2 million Palestinian refugees registered with the UN in Jordan, 500,000 in both Syria and Lebanon. Well, it's estimated millions more live around the world, including thousands in countries like Egypt and Saudi Arabia. The UN says almost 6 million Palestinians are currently registered as refugees. Of Gaza's population of 2.4 million, 1.6 million are classified as refugees. Now, they still have a right to return, they say, to the homes taken by Israel all those decades ago. In the last year and a half in Gaza, Palestinian refugees have been displaced yet again. This is a satellite image of a destroyed area of northern Gaza at the start of the year. Following the ceasefire, tents have begun appearing among the rubble as Gazans attempt to return to their homes. Despite all they've been through, Donald Trump wants them moved again, this time never to return. They should be encouraged to live in other countries, he says, even though all of Israel's neighbours have ruled that out. Palestinians say Trump is promoting ethnic cleansing and has been hoodwinked by the Israeli far right and its American allies, some of whom say Gaza is prime coastal real estate that should be developed into the Riviera of the Middle East. Some have even openly advocated for the reoccupation of Gaza with Jewish settlers, including members of the Netanyahu government, including this man, Itamar Ben-Gvir. Now, some see this as a crafty negotiating tactic by Donald Trump designed to help Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu keep his precarious right-wing governing coalition together during the tricky Gaza ceasefire process. But if he is serious about his plan, he faces staunch opposition from 2.5 million Gazans, America's allies in Europe, and all of Israel's neighbours. That would, it seem, spell its certain failure.
Sky's US correspondent Mark Stone joins me now from the White House. And Mark, huge shock today as we've seen about what Donald Trump had to say re Gaza and the permanent resettlement of Palestinians. But a different message today from the press conference, the press secretary, his press secretary. Is that also, can we take that to mean a different message from the president?
Yeah, a shifting message, I think, remoulding what the president had said. He was explicit in the Oval Office at almost exactly this time yesterday in his assertion that he wanted the permanent relocation of Palestinians to a beautiful place somewhere else. He framed it as common sense. He said, why would they want to live in Gaza? It's going to take decades to rebuild it. Let's find them somewhere else to live. And the White House is still framing it as a sort of humanitarian gesture, one, incidentally, that they are clear they won't pay for. But that's how they're framing it. But Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, did shift the tone because she was implicit in what she was saying was that it was temporary. In fact, she used the word temporary several times. And although she didn't outright contradict or say that they were changing their view from what the president had said last night, she certainly was saying temporary, 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 despite the fact that the president said permanent, permanent yesterday. So a shift there for sure. But on the issue of that's the issue of where they should go and for how long. On the issue of America somehow occupying or owning Gaza, no clarity at all on that. It does, though, I think, seem to be some sort of grand negotiating tactic by the president, something that he doesn't think he will ever have to do. But because it's Donald Trump, everyone is left thinking, well, maybe he actually means it.
And also tonight, the president signing another executive order in which he said that the war on women's sport is over.
Yes, this is a signature policy pledge of the Trump campaign, as it was through the election campaign, the fight to remove the right for transgender women, that is, people who were born biologically as men, being allowed to take part in women's sports. Throughout the campaign, Donald Trump made this a central issue. Some would argue that he exaggerated it and made it into a larger issue than it actually was, but it was certainly something that was tangible to many, many people, and it won him many votes. And in the East Room of the White House, the same place where last night he seemed to rewrite American policy on the Middle East, he today signed an executive order banning transgender women from taking part in women's sports. And he threw forward to the Olympics, which will be here in not very many years in Los Angeles with this.
In Los Angeles in 2028, my administration will not stand by and watch men beat and batter female athletes, and we're just not going to let it happen, and it's going to end, and it's ending right now, and nobody's going to be able to do a damn thing about it, because when I speak, we speak with authority.
So Gaza one day, transgender sporting today. Who knows, Gillian, what tomorrow will bring?
Indeed. Mark, thank you. Ukraine's president said today that Europe needs to spend more on defence now or risk spending everything on defence in the future. Volodymyr Zelensky was answering questions from our security and defence editor, Deborah Haynes, in Kyiv.
Do you believe that European allies, the UK and others, need to spend more on defence, you speaking as a wartime president?
We are spending our entire budget right now. I think that's your answer. If you don't want to be spending your entire budget on defence in the future, invest the necessary percentage today and take steps to strengthen your defence now.
The man who killed 10 people at an adult education centre in Sweden was identified today. Swedish media said that Rickard Andersson had had major problems at school and access to weapons. The incident happened in the city of Örebro, around 100 miles to the west of Stockholm. Police say that although the motive for the attack at the campus Risberska is not yet known, it is not believed to be terror-related. Our correspondent Ashna Huranag reports from Örebro.
35-year-old Rickard Andersson. Local media say this is the man believed to be responsible for Sweden's deadliest ever shooting. This is what onlookers heard on Tuesday lunchtime as people fled from an education campus in the city of Örebro. Inside, students were paralysed in fear, hiding underneath desks as an attacker roamed the hallways. This survivor made eye contact with the gunman.
Yes, I was in there yesterday. I usually come here because I'm in education. So when I was in the classroom, someone came. I saw him. I saw the shooter. So we didn't know what had happened at first. And when he entered my classroom, he started shooting 5, 6 times. So I started running away, and I fell over there when he started shooting towards me, and I dropped my phone. I don't feel good now because I saw people die when he shot them. So yeah, that was really, really tough.
That must have been very scary.
What is it?
That must have been very scary.
Ja, det är det.
10 people were killed, marking the country's worst mass shooting in its history. The facility is mainly used by young adults learning Swedish as a second language or studying extracurricular courses. Marcus is the head teacher of the school next door. He heard the gunshots and went into lockdown.
It's a surreal feeling, an empty feeling. It's shocking, what's happening. You just think this can't be happening, but you act very rationally, and we managed to stay calm throughout.
A shrine opposite the campus is growing. Candles, flowers and cards left as tributes to friends and strangers. The King and Queen of Sweden also joined mourners at the site to pay their respects.
The Queen and myself are personally very shocked over the tragic situation which has happened here in Örebro. And I also know that the whole Sweden, the Swedish people, are shocked over this tragic incident which happened here at this school.
The attacker was found dead inside the building. He was unknown to authorities. Police are not yet clear on the attacker's motivation. They know, however, that he was acting alone. Gun laws here are incredibly strict, so there will be questions about how someone managed to enter an educational facility such as this and kill. The people in this city and the wider country are questioning just that, desperate for answers on how a place of safety became one of terror in a matter of minutes. Ashna Haranag, Sky News in Örebro.
A 15-year-old boy has been charged with the murder of Harvey Wilgoose at a school in Sheffield. Harvey, who was also 15, was stabbed to death at the All Saints Catholic High School on Monday. Police said he suffered serious injuries and, despite the efforts of medics, died a short time after emergency services arrived. One of the scientists known as the godfathers of artificial intelligence has told Sky News that the arms race to develop AI will unavoidably lead to cutting corners on responsibility. Joshua Bengio said it means not enough effort is being put in to create a system that won't blow up in our face. Our science and technology editor, Tom Clark, spoke to him.
Joshua Bengio, Jan LeCun and Bill Gates.
It's a get-together for the godparents of AI, the human brains behind the algorithms and computer chips of artificial intelligence, honoured with the Queen Elizabeth Prize for Engineering. A celebration of the technology's potential, overshadowed by concerns about Chinese chatbots and a race for AI supremacy.
What keeps me awake at night is that if we build systems that are smarter than us and we don't know how to control, this might be an existential risk. These systems, if they want to preserve themselves, would not want to be turned off, which means they would need to control us. That's not good news.
Since the UK's AI summit in 2023, talk of AI risk has dwindled. But is it greater now with Donald Trump in the White House?
We have been on track towards more and more danger, and we're not advancing our ability to coordinate across companies, across nations, to manage the risks that come with power and the responsibility that comes with power.
However, his fellow prize winner, head of AI at Meta, is less worried about existential risks.
We're deluded into thinking that large language models are intelligent, but really they're not that intelligent.
He predicts AI assistance with some human-level intelligence are 3 to 5 years away, but the DeepSeek drama shows none will dominate for long.
If the US decides to, climb up when it comes to AI for geopolitical reasons, for example, or maybe for, commercial reasons, then you'll have other sources of innovation someplace else in the world.
DeepSeek may have shown us that, effectively.
DeepSeek has shown that.
But Meta's own AI boss warns the threat is greater if a few firms dominate.
It would be very dangerous for culture and democracy if those AI assistants came from a handful of companies on the west coast of the US or China. We need a high diversity of AI assistants to reflect the diversity of languages, cultures, value systems across the world.
DeepSeek spooked the markets, but to these scientists it points to a safer future. If AI knowledge is shared, its risks are known and its benefits universal. Tom Clark, Sky News.
Finally, and fittingly, on the anniversary of the founding of this news channel, the woman who helped launch it announced her retirement today. Kay Burley has presented for Sky News since we first broadcast in 1989. Here's a reminder of what was quite a career.
Welcome back to Sky News at 21 minutes past 11.
After over 1 million minutes of live TV news, more than anyone else in the world, it's time for me to indulge in some of my other passions, including my love for travel. So, after covering 12 separate general elections, including Sir Keir Starmer's victory last year, I'm retiring from Sky News. Let politicians of every party just rejoice at that news.
From the Skycopter high above the city of Sunderland, Sky's Kay Burley is there.
Julie Adam, a very good evening to you. Welcome to the skies above Sunderland. The ballot is now over. Bear with me just a second because we're just receiving the sad news here at Sky Centre. Confirmation from our very own Foreign Secretary Robin Cook, who's in the Far East at the moment, that Diana, Princess of Wales, has in fact been killed in that car accident. Now, some very, very sketchy details reaching us here at Sky Centre. Important enough to bring to you, though, at this early stage. We believe that a plane has crashed into the World Trade Center in New York. There were dozens of children on this beach when the tsunami struck, a giant 25-foot tidal wave heading in their direction.
Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, the only monarch most of us have ever known, will be mourned, remembered and celebrated at her state funeral. Will the real Liz Truss please stand up?
I've come all the way from London to talk to you. What would you like?
I saw you before.
Yeah.
Now I hear I had a very big success in London.
Okay, Thank you for waking up and tuning in every morning. I can't tell you how much I've appreciated your support over the last 3.5 decades.
End of an era. And Kay's not the only person saying goodbye today. The legendary heavy metal singer and son of Birmingham, Ozzy Osbourne, has announced he will do one final gig with his band, Black Sabbath, in the city in July. He paused touring in 2023 after being diagnosed with Parkinson's disease and having spinal surgery. Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a look at the newspapers in the press preview. Tonight, we're joined by the Daily Mirror's associate editor, Kevin Maguire, and the Daily Mail's Whitehall editor, Claire Ellicott. Amongst the stories, we'll be discussing this on the front of the Metro. Its headline, failures and cover-ups on an epic level. It's shameful. We'll be right back with that story and others. Do stay with us.
evacuation. You must leave.
For many people, Harvey is far from over.
People here believe the water will be this deep for weeks.
I'm Greg Milam, and I'm Sky's chief North of England correspondent.
Are you trying to run me over, Sir Philip?
No, go away.
Look like it, sir. Will you respond to those who made accusations, Sir Philip?
Can you go away?
Sky News, the full story first.
Welcome back. You're watching Sky News. In just a moment, the press preview, a first look at what's on the front pages of the newspapers as they arrive. But first, our top stories. The families of the Nottingham victims have said the attacker got away with murder after an independent review found failings involved in his prior NHS care. Southport killer Axel Ruda-Cabana's anti-terror case should have been kept open. A review into his attacks has found. President Donald Trump has signed an executive order barring trans women from competing in female sport. You are watching the press preview, a first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. It's time to see what's making the headlines with the Daily Mirror's associate editor, Kevin Maguire, and the Daily Mail's Whitehall editor, Claire Ellicott. They'll be with us from now until just before midnight. So let's take a look at some of those front pages for you now. Well, the Metro reports on the independent investigation which revealed multiple failings in the psychiatric care of Valdo Calacane, who went on to stab 3 people in Nottingham in 2023. The Daily Mail pictures the 6 victims of the Nottingham and Southport stabbings with the headline, "Failed by the State." The Guardian leads with the global outrage today over the US president's proposal to take over Gaza and resettle Palestinians from the territory. The Financial Times says the plans have been widely condemned, not only by the Middle East, but across the world. The same story on the Eye, which claims the UK is on a collision course with Donald Trump. The Daily Star adds the US president's comments about turning the ruins of Gaza into a holiday resort. Migrants who claim benefits in the UK will be banned from becoming UK citizens under Conservatives. That's the top story in the Daily Mail. The Sun has an exclusive on Liam Payne's girlfriend, who says she wasn't to blame for his death. And we are joined tonight by Kevin and Claire. Welcome to both of you. Let's start with, it started with the news conference last night, Donald Trump's news conference, in which he shocked the world, stating that the US would take over Gaza, they would own it, and they would permanently resettle the Palestinians who live there. Kevin?
Yeah, yay for ethnic cleansing, eh? So, as well as Greenland, Canada, and part of Panama, the canal, he now also wants Gaza, which isn't his, so he'd have to illegally take it from the Palestinians because it is there. It's kind of getting crazy. And there he is sitting with Netanyahu, who didn't prod him, didn't push him to say this. He said it himself. He sees it as a great real estate opportunity. Have some type of Riviera. He claims everybody loves the plan, which is untrue because most of the world seems to have condemned it. And the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, at Prime Minister's Questions today, said, no, the Palestinians have to return. But he was very careful not to criticise Trump directly because I think they believe they can have a better relationship with him and stop him doing mad things if they have a dialogue. But it's kind of demeaning for a Prime Minister not to say, look, can you imagine if Vladimir Putin had said, right, we're going to take Gaza, move 2.2 million Palestinians out. It'd be outrage, it would be colonisation, imperialism, expansionism. And when it's Trump, it's just, no, the Palestinians must have to be allowed to stay there, return to their homes, but we won't criticise the man himself.
Although Sir Keir Starmer has said that the UK would work with Palestinians towards what they want and towards a two-state solution.
Yeah, but if Putin had said exactly the same, Putin would have quite rightly been called out personally. And Trump hasn't been.
Claire, we are seeing a slight rowback on what was said yesterday with the press secretary in the White House suggesting that it would be a temporary resettlement, which she said several times. That's coming from her, not from Donald Trump. So is it a rowback or not?
Well, I feel like Donald Trump's not been in power that long, and every day he says a new thing that we all have to try to work out. Is he telling the truth? Is he posturing? Is this all part of his ability to strike deals? Who knows? His spokesman has rowed back on his comments, said there wouldn't be boots on the ground in Gaza, kept emphasising the temporary nature of the people in Gaza not being able to live there. Donald Trump says things to shock, and it's sometimes hard to know whether to take him seriously or not. It's clear that they've decided to row back a bit today. This is his new spokesman. She's very new in the job, but she's clearly saying that he will not be taking over Gaza and turning it into a Riviera, as has been billed. But I think only time will tell what he does. But as Kevin was saying, you would have to seize that territory, and that's you know, that is Putin-esque.
He's learned none of the lessons from what happened in Vietnam for the US. If they're going to seize that territory, they will be sucked into something absolutely terrible. But his press secretary, you mentioned, the quote, it's on the front of the Telegraph, was asked how long the plan had been in the works. And she said, the plan was written in the president's remarks last night as he revealed it to the world and the American people, and his team are continuing to engage on that effort. Basically, it's not been thought through at all. But he's like a man-toddler, just saying daft things. But it's how many does he mean? That is the problem, because it's.
I did think it was quite a skilled response from the press secretary, though. She didn't say yes, and she
I'm working for a nutter who says nutty things, and
she's only 27, isn't she?
I know. Well.
Yes, but also Marco Rubio, in terms of pulling back, saying that the plan was not meant as a hostile move, and also suggesting that it wouldn't be permanent.
Creating 2 million migrants, forcing Palestinians out of Gaza into Egypt and Jordan, he's said before. When you consider his position on migrants into the US, he seems to think, no migrants into the US, but it's all right, I'll create migrants into another country. Everywhere you look at this, when it's unlawful, it's illegal, it wouldn't work, it'd be absolutely outrageous. It's just crazy.
Yeah. The Telegraph, we're going to bring that up now. You mentioned the headline there, but they're going on Sir Keir Starmer, who is basically saying that the plan would favour, as I was suggesting, a two-state solution, and the people of Palestine must be allowed home.
Yes, he said that today, and that can be taken, as Kevin was saying, as a criticism of Trump, but it's not a direct criticism of Trump. It's a statement of the two-state solution, which the British government is the policy. And Trump has obviously said that the Gazans should be rehomed in countries that have humanitarian hearts. Keir's clearly contradicting that by saying they should be allowed back to their homes. But some other countries have gone farther. Germany went further, and the head of the UN said it was ethnic cleansing, a suggestion of ethnic cleansing. So Keir's rebuttal of this is less strong than in other countries. I think that's really noticeable. And the current Labour government are avoiding criticising Trump in any way.
It might be the right tactic in some ways, but it is demeaning.
Yeah,
you can't speak.
It'd be difficult for Labour MPs.
You can't speak truth under power. Crazy power.
Kevin, a suggestion that Nigel Farage is not totally opposed to the plan.
Yeah, well, doesn't he just take his orders from the US? Doesn't that? He might technically be the MP for Clacton, but he seems to be the MP for the White House.
I think he said it'd be great if it was a casino and there were some nightclubs there, which is just.
Yeah, I mean, Muslims are really well known for gambling, aren't they? I mean,
I suspect he was trolling hard.
I mean, if it wasn't so serious, it would be funny. They'd be killing political satire. But there's people lie. We saw the pogrom by Hamas in Israel. We've seen 47,000 deaths in Gaza. The majority of them women and children, so they weren't Hamas fighters. And yet you get one bloke who wants it to turn it into a big real estate for the US. Now you get a British politician who thinks, let's have a casino. I mean, it just...
I mean, there are commentators saying that, you know, Donald Trump doesn't expect to achieve what he's announced, but that's 100% of if he could have his way, but he's hoping that it's part of the negotiating tactics that he might get 30% of what he wants, which would still be a win.
Yeah, like he's the president of the USA. He's not a game show host anymore. It doesn't quite work like that. He's had a poor week because he backed off. He walked away from the tariffs on Mexico and Canada. However you dress it up, Mexico moving some troops to the border, Canada saying they'll stop.
Well, he'll say he negotiated a deal.
Yeah, but we know he didn't. We know he backed off because he got such a kickback in the States because he would have pushed up the cost of living for his supporters. And tariffs damage both sides when they come in, both the exporter and the importer. And now he's firing off this. Maybe his core supporters love it. Maybe they just think, yeah, great, go Don, go. But the rest of the world is just thinking, this guy is, it's Looney Tunes.
Claire, the Star, in their characteristic way of lightening the mood, they've got to wish you were here.
Turning it into a luxury holiday resort. I mean, it takes a lot to put that picture of like abject devastation next to Donald Trump in a suitcase. But yeah,
it's tasteless. Does that? Tasteless?
It's tasteless, but it does sort of go to the heart of the matter, which is that he's saying a ridiculous thing about.
I think it's quite good. It's now there's always a Daily Star front page, and they're just thick as a brick. Donald Trump. Well, it's hard to dispute that. Wingnut leader of free world. Wingnut. It's hard to dispute it. I'm not sure that's tasteless. I think it is just showing the monstrosity that Trump is and the ridiculousness of his plan.
OK. Let's move to the Mirror, and both talking about the Nottingham and Southport killings. The headline simple there, failed by the state. And there we have all the victims pictured, blunders and tragedy.
It's a very good headline. It's 2 cases where the state should have intervened to stop these 2 people and didn't. And the families of the people killed in Nottingham want the NHS workers who allowed Gillian to carry on and not take his medication and not have him locked up. They want them named because they feel like that would be justice done and it would stop that it would stop something like this happening in the future. And the awful Southport story, the killer, Ridicabana, he should have been picked up. The Prevent programme should have worked, and he should have been picked up and stopped from doing this. And we've got 2 horrific cases where the families of these people have been failed, and there needs to be changes brought about.
Because some papers, I think the Express and the Metro have splashed just on the Nottingham report, the NHS report. But of course, Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, also admitted the Prevent strategy had failed in Southport. 4 attempts or 4 opportunities missed. There's others as well, but she was looking at those specifically. I think you see the 6 faces, those children. If the state had got it right, those 6 people, 5 children, sorry, and
the caretaker,
they could be alive, and that's 6 families have lost loved ones because the state did fail them in both cases.
And particularly with Southport, because a clear ideology hadn't been defined, that was the reason that it fell out of the Prevent remit.
I think it must be so baffling for normal people to hear that this man wasn't labelled a terrorist because they couldn't work out which ideology he had, and actually he had a range of mad views. Well, how was he allowed to slip through? Why wasn't somebody saying, well, he's clearly not OK and he's exhibiting the kind of behaviour that a terrorist with an ideology would, and therefore he should be caught up in this programme? And if I think there has been a lot of debate about whether Prevent did actually... It is fit for purpose, but it didn't, in this case, didn't work on this person. Well, then something needs to be in place to stop this happening again, because how on earth does somebody who, just because they can't pinpoint what exactly is motivating him, how is he allowed to slip through the cracks?
Yeah, he may not have been a case for Prevent, but there must then be another programme that could get somebody who was clearly... I think the Prime Minister called him a misfit at one time, but he was clearly unhinged.
Do you think that the lessons have been learned? Because time and time again we say that they have to be, but Can this be prevented? Can these tragedies be prevented?
I think the lessons have been learned, and if you're going to learn them, you're going to have to change the systems, and you're also going to. The truth is, we'll have to spend money. Anyone who comes up against mental health services, case in Nottingham, will know that the staff are absolutely overstretched. They're just swamped by cases, and you get mistakes as a result.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what.
Kevin and Claire, thank you very much for the moment coming up. Could migrants who claim benefits be banned from becoming UK citizens? They might be if the Tories return to power. We'll discuss that next. Do stay with us.
I'm James Matthews, and I'm Sky's US correspondent, based here in Washington, D.C. Do you fear a fourth indictment? Does your government owe an apology to the British home children?
Great to see you.
Does your government owe them an apology? The fact that they were intercepted, does that indicate a military weakness on the part of Iran?
No, no, no.
Free, wherever you get your news. There's no doubting the strength of this hurricane as it roars through. You can feel a devastating power. It had been a difficult night in a deadly storm.
Bang, bang. You can hear it hitting the windows.
Our houses are okay.
It's depressing.
As bad as all of this is, it could have been much worse. Today, this land they call sacred is at the heart of America's electric car revolution.
To me, it's a sacred ground.
The white gold rush is a race that Biden doesn't want to lose. I've covered some of the biggest stories in the world. Donald Trump, 45th President of the United States, it would appear is about to learn his fate.
Escort coming out!
San Quentin houses America's largest death row. They rarely allow cameras onto the condemned block.
James Matthews, Sky News. I want to be treated equally like everyone else.
It's one step closer to getting out, to getting off death row.
Sky News. Get the full story first. Mr. Trump, James Matthews from Sky News.
Hey, James.
Are you diminished by claims that you're a racist?
Question?
Mr. Musk, has your ignorance and ego cost Ukrainian lives? Vladimir Putin calls you outstanding. What do you call him, sir?
He's from Sky News. He's from Sky News. He's entitled to ask me questions.
The Premier League is exclusively on Peacock. Two of the league's biggest clubs find themselves at the wrong end of the table.
And the mood turns extremely sour.
Desperately chasing a win to turn their season around.
It's a beautiful finish.
Tottenham Hotspur.
To Eriksen. Back toward Amma.
Manchester United. This is the Premier League. February 16, only on Peacock.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Weeknights on Sky News.
This is your chance. Tell people. Welcome to the Politics Hub.
Our police force has apologised.
If you want to find out about Grimsby, you come to the docks.
I'm live in Jerusalem.
Are you not concerned that that could lead to all-out war?
Hello there, good evening. There are fears of an upsurge in violence. What's at stake here?
You are watching the press preview, a first look at the front pages as they arrive.
Just protect them from Putin.
Welcome back. You are watching the press preview. Still with me, Kevin and Claire. Let's take a look at the Mail front page. The headline there, Kemi, I'll ban migrants who claim benefits from becoming UK citizens. This being described as the first bit of actual policy that she's putting forward. Also, those claiming indefinite leave to remain would have to wait 10 years rather than the five. Claire.
Yes, so this is Kemi's first major announcement after becoming Tory leader. She's only been Tory leader for a few months. I think she was coming in for a little bit of criticism for not having any kind of policy platform to stand on. And she said the Tories will take their time. We have to rebuild after we've had a horrific defeat at the election. And this is the first time she's come forward to put forward a policy. And she's picked migration. Reform are a big problem for the Tories and probably for Labour too. But Kemi's chosen immigration. She's vowing a crackdown on immigration laws, make it more difficult for people to become British citizens, and they'd have to stay here for 10 years rather than 5 years before they could get indefinite leave to remain. And it would be a tougher system than we have now. So this is her, you know, putting down her cards and saying, I'm going to be tough on immigration. And that's my pitch.
Kevin, is she taking the fight to reform?
I think reform's taken the fight to her. And she said she wasn't going to have any policies for 2 years. And now she's panicking because polls are showing some polls are showing the Tories down a third, Labour and Reform almost swapping the lead. But what apart from their record, which we could go on and say, why didn't you do any of this when you're in? If you're going to do it, of course, the big migration isn't people in small boats. 30 or 40,000 come small. It's legal migration, net migration, which the Conservatives allowed. 750,000 went up to a record, much higher than when Britain was in the European Union with freedom of movement. But there's already salary levels you have to come in, and people don't come to Britain to claim benefits. They come to Britain to work, or they come to Britain to study. So I just actually wonder, as she spins this, how many people it would actually impact. Forgetting the rights or wrongs of it, how many people would it actually impact? I would suggest it'll be nowhere near the impression she's trying to create, that this will reduce. I think net migrations are down about 350,000 now. It'll continue coming down, but it's not. People don't come for benefits. It's always this myth of people coming for the British welfare.
But one of the things she's saying
state.
is that they have to earn a certain amount.
Yeah, but you have to for legal migration now. You have to come in, and you've got to clear a hurdle.
I think some of the stuff she's saying will appeal to not just people who might have supported the Tories in the past or in the future, but barring people who've got criminal records from indefinite leave to remain, being able to stay in the country, that would appeal to most people, I think. I think there are lots of questions as to why we're not tougher on some of this stuff. And
that would apply now, and deportations if the system operates.
Let's get to the Metro and some breaking news from my colleague Kate Burley. Bowing out after 36 years.
Yeah, she's made page 3. I mean, it's the page 3 girl, woman. Sorry. Anyway.
That's an amazing picture of her.
On the left, how it was. But what a phenomenal achievement to stay at the top of live broadcasting for so long, right from the beginning, 1989. Absolutely incredible. She's been there most of my working life. I would have thought all of your working life. And it was kind of... And I watched and heard it. I thought, are you hearing this? Because it had been kept under wraps. Yeah, she made the news. She was the news, and it was kept under wraps. So it was breaking news. I thought that's pretty impressive.
Yeah,
it is indeed. End of an era.
What a career.
Yeah.
Kevin and Claire, thank you very much for the moment. We'll see you in the 11. Let's take a look at the weather for you now. Well, we're entering a colder, calmer spell with widespread overnight frost and some fog possible. There'll be a mostly fine, calm start tomorrow with an extensive frost and some dense freezing fog patches, mainly over East Anglia and the East Midlands. The morning will stay dry with almost unbroken sunshine, but early fog will be slow to lift, while the south will see cloud bubbling up. Temperatures will be around average with mostly light winds, but expect a chilly breeze in the south and northwest. Coming up next on Sky News at 11, the families of the Nottingham attack victims say killer Valdo Callacane got away with murder following a damning report into his mental health treatment.